Have you ever had that cold feeling in the pit of your stomach when someone looks you right in the eye and tells you something, and every instinct you have screams that they are lying? It's a violation, isn't it? A feeling of being played for a fool. Now, what if I told you that feeling is your subconscious picking up on signals your conscious mind is trained to ignore? For people our age, the stakes of being deceived are higher than ever. A lie from a contractor could cost you your retirement savings. A lie from a supposed friend could lead to financial ruin or emotional heartbreak. A lie from a public figure can erode the very trust we place in the world around us. For decades, I made my living in the quiet, tense space of an interrogation room. My name is Arthur Hayes. I'm not FBI, but I was the man they and many others called when the standard methods failed. My job was to sit across from people who had built fortresses of lies around themselves and find the one loose brick that would bring the whole thing crashing down. What I learned in those years is that everyone lies, but nobody lies well. Not when you know what to look for. Hollywood and television have sold you a bill of goods: Pinocchio noses, shifty eyes, nervous sweating. Forget all of it. That's amateur stuff. The real system, the one that works on hardened criminals and polished celebrities alike, is far more nuanced. It's a 4-part framework, a lens through which you can see the truth behind the performance. We call it the 4 C's: change, context, cluster, and culture. Once you understand these 4 pillars, you can't unsee them. You'll start noticing the cracks in the carefully constructed masks people wear every single day. I remember a man named Marcus, a financial advisor who'd swindled half a dozen elderly clients out of their life savings. He sat in my room looking like a church deacon, calm, collected, with a soft, reassuring voice. He had an answer for everything, but his baseline, his normal state, was almost too calm. A normal person in that situation, even an innocent one, would show some stress. His tranquility was the performance. The change came when I casually mentioned the name of his first victim, a widow named Eleanor. For just a fraction of a second, his eyelids fluttered, a micro-expression of fear. His posture tightened. He cleared his throat. It wasn't one big thing, it was a cluster of tiny things. The context was the pressure of the room, and the change was the leak. That's how we got him. He wasn't undone by a dramatic confession, but by a flicker of an eyelid. So, let me ask you, think about the last time you felt certain someone was lying to you. Was it what they said, or was it a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in their behavior that you couldn't quite put your finger on? That's where the truth lives. Let's break down the engine of this system, the 4 C's. Master these, and you'll start to see the world in higher definition. The first, and most important, is change. We're talking about a change from a person's baseline behavior. Before you can spot a deviation, you have to know what's normal for that person. Everyone has their own unique tics and habits. Some people are naturally fidgety. Some people rarely make eye contact. Some talk with their hands. None of that means they're lying. It's just their baseline. The lie is revealed in the change from that baseline when a sensitive topic is introduced. I once questioned a warehouse foreman named Dave about some missing inventory. For the first 20 minutes, we talked about his family, the weather, his favorite sports team. He was relaxed, leaning back, using open-hand gestures. That was his baseline. The moment I said the word inventory, his posture shifted. He physically recoiled just an inch, and his hands, which had been open, clenched into fists under the table. He didn't start sweating or stuttering. It was a subtle, almost invisible change from his established norm. That was the signal. That was the thread I needed to pull. The psychological principle here is simple. Our brains are built for efficiency. Maintaining our normal behavior, our baseline, is easy. It takes no conscious effort. But constructing and maintaining a lie is incredibly taxing work for the brain. It's called cognitive load. The liar has to invent the false story, remember the details of that story, suppress the truth, and simultaneously monitor your reaction to see if you're buying it. It's a mental juggling act, and eventually a ball gets dropped. That dropped ball manifests as a change from their baseline. The second C is context. A signal of deception means nothing without understanding the situation. A man sweating in a sauna is normal. A man sweating in a refrigerated meat locker is a red flag. The interrogation room, a celebrity interview surrounded by cameras, or a police officer's traffic stop are all high-stress environments. A person might show signs of anxiety, a shaky voice, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, simply because the context is intimidating, not because they're being deceptive. To attribute those signs to lying without considering the context is a rookie mistake, and a dangerous one. You must always ask, is this behavior appropriate for this specific situation? The third C is cluster. This is where you separate the signal from the noise. A single tell means nothing. A fidgety hand could be a splinter. A lack of eye contact could be shyness. A quiver in the voice could be a cold. But when you see a cluster of these signals happening at the same time, the probability of deception skyrockets. It's the foreman Dave recoiling and clenching his fists and suddenly breaking eye contact the moment I mention the inventory. It is not one thing, it is the combination of 3 or 4 things happening in a 1 or 2 second window. Finally, we have culture. This is a factor many so-called experts ignore. How we communicate non-verbally is heavily influenced by our upbringing, our culture, and our personal history. In some cultures, direct eye contact is a sign of respect in others. It's a sign of aggression or disrespect, especially toward an authority figure. What might look like evasiveness to you could be a sign of deference in their world. You have to grade on a curve. Have you ever been in a situation where you completely misread someone's intentions because their background was different from yours? It's a humbling experience and a vital lesson in not jumping to conclusions. These 4 principles, change, context, cluster, and culture, are not a magic trick. They are a disciplined method of observation that strips away your biases and forces you to see what's actually there. Now, let's apply this framework to the real world, where the stakes are reputation, freedom, and millions of dollars. Let's talk about the case of Sean Diddy Combs. When the accusations against him surfaced, he released videos to deny them. Millions of people watched, and many were convinced. But let's look past the words and analyze the performance through the lens of the 4 CDS. First, change from baseline. Anyone who has followed his career knows his public persona. He has a baseline of being cool, confident, almost untouchably smooth. He's a master of controlling his image. In his denial videos, however, we see a significant deviation. The speech is more deliberate, more rehearsed. Notice the vocal quality. There's a slight strain, a vocal fry that creeps in at the end of his sentences. This isn't his usual relaxed cadence. This is the sound of a man under immense pressure, where every word is being carefully weighed. Our limbic system, the primitive, emotional part of our brain, is hardwired to our vocal cords. When we're under stress, it's one of the first things to betray us, no matter how much we try to control it. The confidence is a performance. The vocal strain is a leak of the truth. Next, consider the context. This is not a casual conversation. He is on camera, addressing the entire world, with his freedom and empire on the line. The pressure is astronomical. Of course, he's going to be stressed. But we have to differentiate between general stress and the specific stress tied to deception. The tells appear most strongly when he makes definitive statements of denial. This suggests the stress isn't just from the situation, but from the specific words he is forcing himself to say. Then we look for the cluster. It's not just the vocal fry. Look at his gestures. They seem overly broad and rehearsed, not organically connected to his words. There's a slight delay, as if his brain is telling his hands what to do a split second after he speaks. Watch his facial expressions. He attempts to portray righteous indignation, but we see flashes of what we call duping delight. A faint, quickly suppressed smirk that can occur when a liar believes they are getting away with the lie. The combination of the vocal strain, the rehearsed gestures, The slight emotional incongruity. That's a powerful cluster. It all points in one direction. This reminds me of a real estate tycoon I once interviewed, a man with an ego the size of one of his buildings. He was accused of massive fraud. He sat across from me, projecting utter invincibility, just like Combs. He denied everything with a calm, practiced smile. But when I laid out a piece of evidence on the table, a single forged signature, he did two things simultaneously. He glanced at it for a nanosecond, and his nostrils flared. That was it. A tiny cluster. The instinctual, animalistic response of smelling a predator. His mouth kept smiling, but his limbic system told the real story. When you watch these powerful figures, do you ever find yourself focusing so much on their confident words that you miss the fleeting expressions of fear or anger in their eyes? Let's move on to two other fascinating studies in public performance. Blake Lively and Jussie Smollett. These cases are less about overt aggression and more about the delicate art of narrative control and manufactured emotion. Blake Lively, in a now famous awkward interview, provides a masterclass in the difference between authentic emotion and social performance. The context is a press junket, a highly controlled environment designed to promote a film. Her baseline is charming, bubbly, and media-savvy. However, when the interviewer's questions stray into uncomfortable territory, we see the change. Her smile becomes fixed, a social mask that doesn't reach her eyes. This is the difference between a real Duchenne smile, which involves the orbicularis oculi muscles around the eyes, and a Pan-Am smile, which only uses the mouth. Her body language becomes more closed off, her laughter a bit too forced. The cluster is subtle. The fixed smile, the slight defensive posture, the verbal deflections that steer the conversation back to safe territory. She's not necessarily telling a colossal lie, but she is actively managing your perception of her, hiding her genuine discomfort behind a wall of practiced charm. It's a performance of authenticity, which is its own form of deception. Jussie Smollett is a different beast entirely. His case is about the maintenance of a complete fabrication under intense scrutiny. When he first gave his tearful interview, many believed him because the emotion seemed so raw. But raw emotion can be manufactured. What gave him away over time was the breakdown of his narrative. When people tell the truth, especially about a traumatic event, the core facts of the story remain consistent even if the emotional retelling varies. They might remember new details, but the central structure holds firm. With Smollett, the story began to shift. Details changed. When pressed, he didn't respond with the confusion or frustration of a genuine victim trying to clarify. He responded with indignant rage. This is a critical tell. When you question a truthful person's account, they try to help you understand. They'll offer more details, they'll try to re-explain. When you question a liar's account, they often perceive it as an attack on their character and their entire fabricated reality. They become hostile, defensive, and accuse you of being the problem. This is a diversionary tactic designed to shut down the inquiry. I saw this with a woman who claimed she'd been robbed at gunpoint in her own home. Her story was compelling, filled with tears and terror. But the timeline didn't add up. When we began to gently probe the inconsistencies, she didn't get scared or confused. She exploded. "How dare you? I'm the victim here," she screamed. That defensive fury, that attempt to flip the script and make us the villains, was a bigger confession than anything she could have said. Have you ever been in an argument with someone where, instead of answering your question, they attack your right to ask it? That shift from defense of the facts to an attack on the questioner is often a massive red flag that the facts themselves are built on sand. Smollett's performance, his indignant anger, was the last line of defense for a story that had no other support. So, we've sat in the interrogation room. We've analyzed celebrities under the Klieg lights. What does this mean for you in your life? This isn't about turning you into a human lie detector to catch your spouse in a fib. Using this knowledge to win trivial arguments is a misuse of a powerful tool and a fast way to ruin relationships. This is about self-preservation. It's about spotting the red flags in high-stakes situations where being deceived can have devastating consequences, especially as we get older and people might see us as easier targets. Let's make it practical. Imagine you're getting a quote from a roofing contractor. He is charming and tells you he can give you a special deal if you pay in cash today. That's the bait. Now, you ask him for his license number and a list of references. Watch for the change. Does his easygoing demeanor tighten up? Does he avoid the question and try to redirect you back to the special deal? Does a cluster of behaviors appear, breaking eye contact, rubbing the back of his neck, shifting his weight? The context is a financial transaction where you hold the power until you hand over the money. His evasiveness is a major red flag that warrants at the very least walking away and doing more research. This system isn't about getting a confession, it's about knowing when to ask more questions and when to protect yourself. Consider another scenario. A new person at your community center or church who is incredibly friendly and very interested in your financial situation. They tell you about a can't-miss investment opportunity with guaranteed returns. Their words are reassuring. But watch their body language when you ask for a prospectus or want to run it by your lawyer. Do they show signs of impatience? Do their gestures, which were open and friendly, become sharp and dismissive? Do they use phrases like, "You have to trust me on this," or "This is too complicated for lawyers to understand"? That is the verbal equivalent of a deceptive, nonverbal tell. They are trying to create a context of trust and exclusivity to bypass your rational brain. The psychological trick is to make you feel special for being let in on a secret, while the reality is they're trying to isolate you from sound advice. So, what is the takeaway? It's simple. Trust, but verify. Listen to that feeling in your gut. When you notice a cluster of deceptive signals, don't ignore it. It doesn't mean you should stand up and yell, "Liar!" It means you should pause, ask more questions, seek a second opinion, check references, slow the situation down. Deceivers, from con artists to manipulative relatives, thrive on speed and emotion. They want you to make a quick decision before your rational mind catches up. By using these principles, by observing changes from a baseline, considering the context, looking for clusters, and being mindful of differences, you give yourself the one thing a deceiver can't stand: time. Time to think, time to investigate, and time to see the truth hiding behind the performance. Start practicing. Not to be cynical, but to be safe. Observe people in low-stakes situations. See if you can spot the little leaks. The more you practice, the more your instincts will sharpen, giving you the clarity and confidence to navigate a world that is, unfortunately, full of people who do not have your best interests at heart.